welcome to the Stahls TV Morning Show. I'm Josh.
And I'm Courtney.
And we have an episode today that we think you're going to like. We're going to talk a lot about decorating headwear and what to look for really in a hat in order to heat print it accurately, and some challenges and even opportunities with some other decorating technologies relative to headwear. And we have a bit more exciting news. A couple weeks ago, I was on with Jimmy, and we rolled out a few new glitter flake colors to our Stahls audience here that purchases CAD cut glitter flake from Stahls.com. And we have yet again 3 new colors to introduce today, as well as a look of the week.
The new colors just keep coming.
Yeah, and I like these colors. So we have one that should be trendy for the end of summer here. This one's called Coral Glitter Flake, so a nice bright orangish color, orangish pink color. We have what's been, I think, the best received so far is rose gold. So people have been asking for this rose gold glitter and for quite a while, and we're excited to finally have that available for you. And then last but not least, we have rainbow black, and I'm not sure if you're picking up the sparkles in that, but there's almost an iridescent rainbow sparkle in this material. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we launched rainbow white, which has been very popular. A lot of customers are actually been commenting that they like the rainbow white better than the regular white.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the black. I think this rainbow black is just really popular. It kind of pulls out more of a sparkle or more of a glitzy look than the standard black because of the extra colors in it.
Yeah, and if you missed a couple weeks ago, the other 2 remaining colors were periwinkle and then mint, which has been tremendously popular, flying off the shelf. So we'd recommend, you can buy these at Stahls.com. Purchase those as little as 1 yard by 20 inches wide up to 50-yard rolls. And I'd say get as much as you can, because it's, while supplies last, we're certainly manufacturing them as quickly as we can, but they are going fast since we launched them last week.
Yeah, I imagine that rose gold will be a big seller this fall for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and so you got to look at, pan through all of the looks that were submitted this week for Look of the Week, and I know you had a hard time deciding, but show us what you settled on.
Yeah, so this week we settled on a pair of sandals, so perfect for the dead of summer, from Katie by So Cute by Katie, and it actually just a really popular sandal type. So these are embroidered disc sandals, or could be embroidered disc sandals. She actually used a heat transfer vinyl on them in fashion film, but they offer a lot of opportunity for personalization. I've seen these from a lot of retailers on Etsy and from different stores. I know DBA Monogram also sells patterned disc sandals like these, and so being able to add that personalization, it's actually incredibly easy because that circle part actually snaps off, so you can easily lay it on your heat press it down, and then put them back together again.
Oh, that's interesting. So no special attachment required for these. You just snap that off and drop it onto the heat press?
Yep.
And you could probably do, I don't know, maybe a dozen of those at once.
Right.
If you have a 16 by 20 press, so that's interesting. We've also decorated sandals quite a few different times here on Stahls TV with fashion film, even the faux leather or the true leather, authentic leather sandals, and that's all possible with the right attachment if it doesn't have the snap-off decoration area, and then the flexible application pad to keep that shoe from melting. So if I wanted to submit my idea for Look of the Week, how would I do that?
You can email us at tv@stahls.com. You can also submit them on the Saturday Show and Tell on our Facebook page, Stahls All Things Heat Printing, which is where we're broadcasting the morning show here today. And you can also submit them by tagging us on Instagram at Stahls TV.
Now, I didn't think to include this in the show ahead of time, but since we're talking about decoration concepts and looks of the week, you always get nervous when I do stuff like this, I can tell. But this one's a serious one. So Impressions Magazine is holding their annual Impressions Awards right now, and there's a whole category devoted to heat printing where you can actually submit a decorated garment to Impressions Magazine to perhaps get featured in their publication and win the award of Best Decorator in the category of heat printing. And so if you visit impressionsmag.com, you'll find all the details about that, and we'll make sure we share it in our Facebook page afterwards. So we know that there's many of you attending live on Facebook, also watching through our normal GoToWebinar client, and we would encourage you throughout today's live show to go ahead and chat in your questions. We'll stop several times throughout to answer those. And today's topic, headwear in general. So specifically focusing on the caps or the hat side of headwear. and adding those to your business as an item to decorate, to sell through to whoever your customer is. And so this is one of my favorite topics because I think that outside of a normal flat heat press, this is one of the easiest, most profitable additions to an apparel decorator is a hat press. So I guess let's get started. Maybe if you can give us a tour through what a hat press actually looks like, and then we'll go into styles of hats.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the cap press over here. So a hat press, separate from a shirt press, actually has a curved heater as well as a curved base. So this is designed specifically for printing the curved shape of a hat. The nice thing about the Hotronix clam is that this one's actually an auto open release. Also has the option for interchangeable platens, which we'll talk about a little bit today. But it's very simple. A hat just basically loads onto the platen, locks it down into place, and then you can begin printing the cap. So really great opportunity there. And then you'll notice that really anything that fits the spacing of the bottom platen is an opportunity for being able to print on these cap presses. So while it does work ideally for caps, it's not just for caps. There's a lot of opportunities outside of that as well.
Okay, good. So that's our Hotronix auto open cap press. There is a less expensive model that's called the Max cap press that you just lose the auto open in the digital pressure readout. So a couple different price points out there for heat press machines that will do specifically caps, the curved area of the cap. So I know some people have been able to do some things on their flat press and sort of rig it to do some print areas, but really if you plan to get into the business of decorating headwear accurately for profit, we would recommend a dedicated unit for doing that. And so there's more than one way to decorate a cap. There's heat printing, you can screen print, you can embroider. What would you say sort of is the sweet spot for heat printing versus those other technologies?
The sweet spot for heat printing is really going to be the ability to do all caps very quickly, very easily, customization on those, and really just the throughput, being able to produce them fast.
Yeah, basically every 10 seconds, effective. Well, by the time you load it on, probably 30 seconds, you're knocking out a front print placement on a hat. And the idea that I can do any location on that hat, clear around the side, rotate the cap around to print it, makes it easier. So we are going to point to some different sources for headwear because I see those questions coming in, and we'll try to do a little bit more in-depth look at sources for headwear if you're trying to find a specific cap. Our Facebook group is always a good place to ask that question. We launched a Facebook group, I don't know, about a month ago called Heat Press for Profit. If you just search that on Facebook and apply to join, there's always a bunch of customers on there that are happy to share where they're sourcing items if you ask the question as well in case we miss it. So let's talk about the sort of caps that are out there and start with the very fundamentals when you're looking to source a cap, what the considerations are. So number one, we're looking at two different styles of caps here. Obviously there's some differences. The main difference that I want to point out is the difference between a 5-panel versus a 6-panel cap. So on a 6-panel cap, which is the one on this one on your screen, I don't know if it's left or right because I'm looking backwards in here, so that's tough to figure out. But it's this one, that particular one has the center seam, and that presents a greater challenge to decorating that hat typically. And so cap manufacturers have created 5-panel caps, which is the blue cap, and that eliminates the center seam, and that makes it very easy to screen print the cap. So when I'm dragging a squeegee across that cap, I'm not having to work through any sort of obstructed print area with that the center seam causes and causes issue when I'm screen printing. Now, for heat printing, the cool thing is we really don't care. You can print a 5-panel cap, you can go directly over the seam on a 6-panel cap. Have you experienced anything that you want to sort of point out to decorators when they do heat apply over a seam?
I think when you're heat applying over the seam, just choosing a heat transfer that's going to cover and look still like a solid image into something that's a little bit thicker or a little bit heavier will make sure that you're not seeing that seam kind of print through there.
Okay, so if you do pick a thin heat transfer vinyl on that seam area, you may get a little bit of strike through because it is going to receive more pressure. So picking something maybe with a little better opacity, a little thicker, is going to give you a nicer quality result. But you can certainly print over that seam regardless. So once you understand the difference between a 5-panel and a 6-panel cap, that's sort of the very basic terminology. Then we go to something which is structured versus unstructured. I notice a comment came in on structured versus unstructured caps. And so I think it's important to point out what the difference is. So unstructured, as you might imagine, doesn't have much of a structure to it. So when you should be able to sort of bunch it up. When we look inside of the crown area of the cap, which is the very front print area, basically it's just fabric behind it. It doesn't have a lot of structure to it, and it doesn't have what's called a fused buckram. So if we look at another example, this sort of area that gives the cap structure, that's the fused buckram that's hard, that is very common on a structured cap. So that's the difference. This will basically, the structured cap maintains its form, and the unstructured cap is a little more free form. Now, when we talk about decorating, specifically with heat printing, looking at a structured versus an unstructured cap, there's some things I need to look out for, right?
Absolutely. I think the unstructured hat would be easier to print because it has more give when you're loading it onto the platen.
Yeah, so an unstructured cap is, if you're just starting out, an unstructured cap is the simplest to heat print. You don't run into really any issues that I can think of as far as creasing on hats, which is one of the top issues with heat printing headwear. And that creasing issue really shows up when there's this fused buckram, because you're applying heat and pressure, and basically you are creasing sometimes the area where that cap is structured, and you see very commonly a crease running across here. Now, just to take a break out from the sort of anatomy of a hat, let's take a look at a couple pictures that were shared in our Facebook group where customers were having decoration challenges specifically with headwear. So we're looking here at a structured cap, and we see a very noticeable crease above the word mark, the bride word mark on this hat.
Yeah, I think we see this a lot with definitely the structured hats, but when you mentioned the different styles of hats are available, 5-panel, 6-panel, there's just so many different styles of hats, and so we see a lot of this creasing happening whenever they're not printed effectively with the right platen or with the right tools for the job or something like this.
Cool, and let's, speaking of tools, let's go to our O-Tools graphic. Nice segue there, Courtney, thank you. And we see Joe's got his head down just shaking it at us. So you see the very noticeable crease on this hat as well. So this was an awesome looking hat, nice mesh back, bright color, sort of color block design, but this can ruin a job very quickly when you get these crease marks. And sadly, I talk to a lot of decorators at trade shows that if you spend any time near the hat press at a trade show, you will have customers coming back and saying, I'm getting creasing on my hats. Why aren't you getting it here? Or how do I correct that? And I think that's a big, probably the biggest question when it comes to heat printing headwear. So how do I get rid of that crease?
So there's a lot of different ways to do that. One is making sure you're choosing the right tool or the right platen for the job. So one thing about the Hotronix heat press, which I'll take a look and kind of demonstrate that back over at the cap press. One thing about the cap press that you use is that if you're able to actually change out these interchangeable platens, it can be huge as you switch hat types. For example, I'm going to go ahead and load in just a flat bill structured cap here, and as I load this onto the standard platen that would come with the cap press, and I go to lock it in place, you'll notice that when I lock it and I press it down, I'm getting a nice buckle in the center here. So that's going to cause inaccurate pressure, which is going to cause a crease here at the top of the press. Also, it's probably going to cause some adhesion issues with my transfer when I apply them.
Yeah, if you can just pause there for a second, push in again. So basically, you're getting a gap space between the print area of the hat and the platen, which causes creasing and also sort of fold over of the print area and that crease.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to take this out and swap in the All-Star platen, which is a little bit smaller and will give me a better adhesion or a better pressure there. So I'll lock that in place. Now when I load this on, this is going to fit this style of cap much better. I'm not going to have that same buckling. I won't have that same type of crease mark I was getting on that first platen whenever I go to press it for this application.
Yeah, so the ideal is you want perfect contact between the two, very limited creasing or a gap space in between that. The cap hold down device kind of helps you there because it holds it flat and it sort of gives you both hands to work with, but it's also holding those two surfaces together. So if you have that gap space in between your hat, you're just starting off poorly. And so unfortunately, there are some hat press brands out there that don't even have the option of changeable platens. And so while you can print hats on them, you can't print quality headwear, and you can't print the range of hats that are available out there in the marketplace. So you'll end up being very either limited in what you can print with a quality result or leaving a lot of creases on the hat. So when you're shopping for a hat press, even if you don't end up with Stahls, which I think you should for many reasons, make sure you find one with interchangeable attachments. That is absolutely critical to getting success and quality results. Otherwise, you're going to leave yourself short on that. So that was the 2 3/4 by 6.5 platen you've loaded. Basically, that means I have that about 2.5 by 6 1/4 print area. So come in 1/4 inch or maybe 1/8 of an inch on each side, and that will give you your sort of logo size. So, and I've been guilty of this before, but I showed up at a trade show and you load the smaller platen that fits the hat, right? And then all of a sudden your design that was pre-done for your event or whatever is larger than the platen size. So you want to be careful to make sure you know which platen goes with which hat and then size your logo accordingly for that print area. So that's good to know both on structured and unstructured caps, both on 5 and 6 panel, that interchangeable platens are going to be key. Now, another big issue. Sorry to point out issues, but we like to tackle the issues with heat printing headwear because I think if you're just getting started, it will give you a better chance of success and go in with your eyes open on what to expect because it can be real profitable. You can do some really quality things here. But the other issue is scorching. And so the top 2 issues sort of in heat printing headwear are creasing and scorching. And when we talk about scorching, there's a few ways to get around it. You want to start by giving whatever one you think of first?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to looking at the fabric of the type of the hat that you're printing. And so a lot of the times, just like with regular apparel, performance wear is a really big popular item for even headwear. And so something that's synthetic or polyester or even an acrylic that's too high of heat, or that can't take too high of a heat, then using a lower temperature transfer will help to avoid scorching with those kind of applications.
Yeah, so start with a low temp transfer if you can. So heat pressing a transfer up at 365 degrees is probably not going to work on most headwear, certainly if there's acrylic or polyester content. So always look towards that. But sometimes even at the 280 degree application, I run into challenges, or I have run into challenges on these acrylic-based caps, which are the popular sort of 5950 new era flat bill styles. Auto sells their version, FlexFit sells their version, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you're talking about heat printing caps and you can sort of determine the style that you're going to sell through to that baseball team or that business, the idea of picking a twill, a brushed twill base cap instead of an acrylic cap can save you a lot of challenges. So if you look at the differences, I mean, there's not a whole lot here. You get a little bit of difference in texture on the cap, but you still get the same flat bill, the same overall look, and that brushed twill cap is going to give you a lot better chance of success. Now, there's another tip for this. If they must have an acrylic cap, but you can't heat print the acrylic because it's scorching, you can do 2 things. You can go to a lighter color cap. So we had a white one over on the press. That tends to show scorch marks a lot less if it's light or light gray or some lighter shade versus black or charcoal, which are tough. Or you can break the rules for that transfer. So especially with heat transfer vinyl and those sorts of heat printed products, typically you can drop that temperature down just like we do when we're decorating like a shoe or sandal and use that flexible application pad because hats aren't going to be laundered for the most part, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you shouldn't have any issues if you want to experiment a little and break those rules. I feel like I'm talking a lot here, but the other thing is pressure.
You do love hats.
I do love hats. I wear a lot of hats, not to work because that's against our dress code, but I do wear a lot of hats. Is the pressure issue. It's a very small pressure area, especially if you don't have a pressure readout. You may be tempted to sort of He-Man it on the pressure and really over apply. You really don't need that much pressure to apply a graphic to a hat. So make sure you lighten up and operate with very little pressure. Sometimes just contact is enough to get that heat transfer film to apply. Okay. So when we talk about hats and styles, I know you have pulled up a few things trending out there in headwear. Do you want to share some of those looks with our audience here?
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and show a couple of those. Similar to what we're seeing actually in the blank apparel market with textures. We're starting to see a lot of these textured, heathered looking finishes brought into headwear. And so these are some styles from Auto that are new this year. And so you can see how you can really match what we're seeing in performance wear and in a lot of the sportswear market with these textured caps. And this one would be a low profile version. They also have a flat bill version as well for these style of hats.
Nice.
Patterns are another big thing. So we see this. This is a style from Auto that's a popular pattern for a unique market. But even using patterns like polka dots or chevron patterns or just unique patterns for ladies' apparel is really popular as well. One more from Auto Cap that we're seeing trending currently is the dad hat and being able to leverage distressed kind of garment wash looks for, this is actually a really popular hat style even for ladies' apparel. We're seeing a lot of the dad hats used in ladies' apparel there, and that kind of moves us over to a popular unstructured cap style from Wholesale Boutique, which has the variety of colors that we usually are looking for: coral, mint, purple, white, some of those really bright lady shades. And again, that's the most popular style that we see, kind of an unstructured, simple hat there for ladies, as well as some of the trucker hat styles that we see also from Wholesale Boutique, and a lot of those trendy, bright colors. Most of these are decorated with monogram personalization, but can be printed with a lot of dance studio logos or cheer logos or anything like that.
And one thing I like particularly about this is they come in youth as well as adults. So if you want to decorate for kids, having a youth style hat that's sized appropriately is nice when you can carry that from youth all the way up through adult sizes. Now, when we talk about sort of heat printing hats, we talked about the front, the side, the back. There's also the bill area that can be printed. And while flat bills should probably not be decorated on that curved surface of the hat press because it will bend the bill, and typically if you're buying a flat bill hat, it's because you want a flat bill. With an attachment on the Hotronix heat presses, there's a flat bill cap attachment that will allow you to print under the bill. So I know a lot of embroiderers that embroider the front of a cap, and I still think embroidery probably is the preferred look on front of the cap. I mean, it's what you see at retail. Heat printing is going to give you more throughput and less expensive, but I have a lot of embroiderers that will use heat printing to decorate the underbill, because this is an area on this hard bill that is very difficult, if not impossible, to embroider for most machines and most decorators. Got anything to say about that?
I don't, but I do think that's a really popular trend, being able to pair together embroidery with heat transfer. But I think it's important, even if you do have the ability to embroider your caps, looking at heat printing as a additional option, just from a budget standpoint, or just to offer another economical version for customers that need a lower price point, or maybe need a faster turn time than what you can do with your embroidery machine. So the two really go hand in hand a lot of the time.
Agreed, and you'll get a lot of the bling results in different finishes you can't really achieve effectively with embroidery with heat printing. So rhinestones are a very popular product to be applied to hats. Also, glitter materials are tremendously popular depending on who your market is that you are selling to. Speaking of glitter materials, in this edition of Make It Monday, we're going to roll the graphic here. I'm going to meet you at the heat press and show you how to apply some. Okay, back over at the hat press, we're going to do our edition of Make It Monday, and of course we're going to do a hat today and show you how to print that, but we're going to sort of go outside of the box on decoration, not just doing the front of the cap, but doing a design, which is one of the unique things about heat transfer film, that runs from the front or the crown of the cap all the way down onto the bill. So wish me luck. We're going to bring you in close here over at the heat press, and we've loaded our low profile platen, the 2 3/4 by 6.5, and I'm going to start by printing the front area of the cap. So whenever you're heat printing caps, you're always going to open it up, drape it down over the print area. Make sure that your sweatband is flipped out so you get a nice even pressure, and I'll sort of tug on the cap, pull it as close as I can up to the bottom edge of that platen, and then lock in my hold down device and try to make sure my platen is getting good pressure down at this bottom area for this particular application. Let me just check my pressure here, lock this down for a second, and then I'm going to position my design. And so we have a design that's been cut here. And this is cut out of CAD cut glitter flake, weeded away. This is what we launched the new colors in. And then I've actually trimmed this design, so I'll give you a peek here. I've trimmed it with scissors to make this bend easier so it can go from the crown to the bill. So when you're doing these types of designs, pressing this big square on here is going to cause puckering and wrinkling on the transfer. So try to trim it so it bends a little bit easier for where you want to print. So I'm going to position it into place. Some thermal tape would be nice, but I don't have any, so I'm going to be quick to respond here and lock down my transfer. I'm going to press the front of the cap down for the glitter flake application, in this case 300 degrees for 10 seconds. Then I'm going to very carefully remove the cap, spin it, get my flat bill area into the press, and heat press that down for the recommended time. In this case, you'll notice there's the sort of crease where it creases over. I'm able to sort of hit that twice from the bill to the crown of the cap when I'm pressing the bill. The completed result should allow me to peel back here, reveal my transfer design, and there we've completed it. A glitter design running from the crown of the cap all the way down to the bill. So a very unique application, and as we stated earlier, if I wanted to do a side print, a back print, all of these locations are quickly and easily possible on the Hotronix Auto Open Cap Press. Thanks for watching this edition of Make It Monday.
So pretty cool application there, I think, with Glitter Flake. It really speaks to, I think, the ease of being able to print with the cap press and for just using different heat transfer vinyls there.
Yeah, I didn't time it. I know I talked a lot, but about a minute and you create this unique cap. I mean, really there's about $1 in material for Glitter Flake by the time I calculate material, a little bit of weeding expense, maybe $1.50 or so. The cap's going to cost me $3 to $4. I'm printing that cap for $5. And all day, I should be able to sell that anywhere from a $12 to an $18 price point, depending on my customer base and the quantity that I'm selling. So there is plenty of profit when you talk about heat printing headwear. And the best thing is, it's a very simple add-on sale. If I'm already printing shirts for Studio 82 for their dance studio, to merchandise a cap or maybe even to throw in a cap with the order when I deliver it, when I'm already cutting the materials or ordering the transfers in those colors, it's a very easy way to package and sort of upsell and up your average order amount for your customers.
Yeah, we even see that a lot with people that do screen printed transfers on t-shirts or on polo shirts, where they're actually ganging together an extra hat image on that transfer sheet using that 11 by 14 sheet. And then they've got, basically they're paying for the transfer regardless if they add it to that sheet or not, and they have another profit opportunity by ordering it that way.
Okay, excellent. And so when you're ordering screen printed transfers, especially if you get from Transfer Express, if you're ordering the Goof Proof, run their 340 degree application temperature rather than the 365, just to protect the integrity of your hat. If you have issues with heat, Elastaprints will work down at 300 degrees. So lots of different options for how to print a hat. I'm sure there are questions by now because we've been talking for a long time, so go ahead and throw them to us, Joe.
Okay, so some of the questions are, they're wondering, how do you identify which platen, hat platen is which one, so you know which one to use with a specific type of hat?
So a ruler is probably the best thing I can say, is they're all called out with the specific dimensions on the Stahls website. Do you mind pulling up the Stahls website while I'm talking, and we'll pull up the cap platen page? So usually when I sell a cap press to a customer, they get the standard platen, and I always recommend the low profile, which is the 2 3/4 by 6.5. Between those two platens, you can print, I found, about 95% of caps. If you plan to do a lot of trucker caps, sort of the large caps, or you want to use it for sleeves, if you click that drop down under, or actually if you just scroll down, you can see the 4x8. That's going to be your largest print size for a cap platen, or you can get the whole package together so you have all the choices. But I find with the 2 3/4 by 6.5, which is the first one listed, the All-Star, and the standard, I'm able to print 95% of all hats. Hopefully that answers that. What other questions do we have, Joe?
Okay, so you talk about lowering your pressure. How do you judge how much to lower it to?
So when you're heat printing hats, typically if you have the digital pressure display, you can just follow the digital pressure display on the machine. But I was referencing if you don't have the pressure readout because you don't have the Hotronix machine, you just want to make sure you're not over applying the pressure. So something very light, if you notice when I lock down that press, I could pretty much lock it down with 2 fingers. Very light pressure is enough to heat apply heat transfer vinyl. Now with the screen printed transfer, you're going to require a little more, so it may require very little pressure with just your hand. But you should never have to use 2 hands to lock down your cap press, no matter who you are.
Is it ever necessary to pre-press a hat?
Good, you want to take that? I always skip it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say anything that's not going to be laundered typically doesn't have to be preheated, so we stick with that with bags, any kind of accessory that isn't laundered. If you think your customers are going to be laundering them, maybe they go with a softball uniform or something that could be getting dirty, then I would go ahead and do the pre-press.
Good.
Okay, and Courtney, you showed a dad hat earlier. Why is it a dad hat?
The dad hat's just kind of a new style that they're showing. It's a soft material, soft crown, unstructured hat that just fits very loosely, and so it's kind of just a new, actually an old style, I guess, that we saw in the 90s that dads wore, and so they're bringing it back as the dad hat.
I think it should be a mom hat. You said moms wear it anyway, so
moms are wearing it now, yeah.
Yeah, but it's sort of a change in sort of pop culture in the trend from the flat bill sort of structured cap look to that sort of unstructured look, and it was tagged, I guess, by bloggers and fashion magazine writers as the dad hat.
Yeah.
So that's why. All right, what else?
Okay, I'm looking over at our Facebook readers and watchers rather, and to see what they might have to offer us here today. And they're, in particular, they're commenting that they really love the new coral and glitter flake that came out. But as far as a question, they're looking for a recommendation for a popular cap for young women, un or lightly structured.
So the unstructured hat, I would probably recommend that Wholesale Boutique blank if you're able to purchase from there. DBA Monogram also has a lot of styles as well for that unstructured type hat for ladies, same kind of coral, mint, navy colors.
Yeah, and Auto has a really good selection. If you go to AutoCap, they have a nice selection as well. I know there's many other hat companies. We'll look up some and
Sanmar
post
has
them.
some as well.
Yep. Anything else from Facebook, Joe, towards the top of the feed there? I'm not seeing it here. Any plans to enlarge the size of our gang sheets, specifically with Transfer Express? None that I'm aware of right now. So 11 1/4 by 14 inch is the size of the sheet and the feast per sheet, so fill it up. But there's no plans I'm aware of to enlarge the size of that sheet. And any tips for getting a press line on the hat? I think we went through that pretty in depth probably after the question was asked. If not, watch the show back. We did cover that. And looks like we're in good shape. So this was episode 98 of the morning show.
We're getting near 100.
So we are rapidly approaching episode 100. I think episode 100 is going to be exciting. We're still planning the total topic, but I can say one thing for sure. There'll be some giveaways happening on episode 100, so we want to thank you for always tuning in to the Stahls TV Morning Show, and we plan to keep it going at least for another 100 episodes. Thanks for watching.